people, what's happening? Welcome to another episode of the Realist Debates with myself, the Realist One J.
It's Lengman Joseph from Around the Ways, aka Joey Leng, aka just Joey.
Hi, I'm Barry, otherwise known as the face in the crowd.
I'm Liz, aka also known forever as Liz. I also have an Instagram page called the BIPOC Bookcase, which you can find on, like I said, Instagram. So yeah.
Follow that up.
Black
So,
books.
people in a twist of events today, we're actually handing over the reins. So myself and Joey are not actually the hosts of this show.
We guests.
We're actually the guests. So we're
We got
literally
the power.
gonna hand it over
Hey.
to you guys. Let's go.
Well, it basically has all come around based on the Sarah Everard case. And we kind of just wanted to have a conversation about what it's really like to be a woman, the things that we go through, the safety issues, the sexism, everything. And we just wanted to get your guys' opinion on that and get a real male perspective. So hopefully it's going to be an interesting one.
It absolutely will be interesting. And, there's a lot of stuff after that unfortunate case just about how men can be better allies to women. And I think for us to find out how that can occur, we need to just do a deep dive on these two volunteers. Hopefully they won't hate it. Hopefully we can still be friends after this. Because essentially, sexism, it occurs because of the negative treatment or viewpoints that sometimes men can have subconsciously or consciously about women. And we want to just find out where does it start? I'm not saying you guys are sexist, and how we can be better. And after Sarah Everard case, I looked at some stats, and the Office of National Statistics said in 2020 there was 2.3 million individuals who said they experienced domestic abuse or violence, and 1.6 million of those were women. 757,000 were men, but that means over double of those incidents were by essentially people who identify as women or, are, cis and female. So I really want to explore that issue as well. And also as well, when I looked at the DA cases, it actually said a lot of the abuse wasn't always sexual. It was actually non-sexual violence, which included emotional abuse, financial abuse. And there's so many ways that sexism and abuse plays out between that male-female gender dynamic. And we just want to have a deep dive with you guys, really.
We're ready.
I'm so excited.
We're ready. Let me just throw a disclaimer out there as well. Obviously, myself and Joey are going to be as honest as possible. It's the Realist Debate. So we're going to give our perspective from our own point of view. And then we're also going to try and broaden it and give a man's perspective. Now, another disclaimer, we don't speak for all men, but we're just going to try and give you guys maybe an insight on how a man would think generally. So yeah,
absolutely. And I think our main aim is to get the unconscious views to make it more conscious, because there's going to be people, men, who are going to watch this and be like, wow, I've held these views previously, or I kind of still do. And how can I be better toward and support women and be real, allies as opposed to performative ones? So we're going to start with you two.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Okay.
No pressure, guys.
No pressure.
All right.
Joey, you've been a bit quiet. Are you okay?
Straight for the headshot.
Wow.
Okay.
Ankle graze. No, I'm just ready.
Ready, yeah?
Ready to speak.
Shall we kick it off?
Yeah, before we can
let's
really say where you guys are at now, we've got to look at where you were. So initially, something that me and Barry were talking about was growing up. What messages did you have about women and that gender dynamic?
What were you taught? From your parents, from your aunties, from teachers?
I can kick that one off. I've always been respectful to women, and
That's a lie. That's a lie.
Is it? Why is it a
Come
lie?
on, be real. You've always, from birth, been respectful to women.
Listen to where I'm coming from.
Okay, sorry.
Wait,
I'm not saying I haven't been disrespectful, but my general outlook towards women is respectful. Reason being is that I was raised by a single mother. So
what does that mean when people say that?
I know, this is what guys love to say, and I was raised by... No, I'm not dissing you.
No. Say what you need to say.
Do you know what? Guys will always come with this all the time. especially if like you're dating or whatever, like, oh yes, I was raised by a single woman and my aunties were great, so I'm a great guy. I think every man has said that to me.
Absolutely.
Like, and it doesn't really mean anything because they still cheat, still like
I'm still on the floor crying over them, boy.
still,
Like,
exactly.
It's very subjective, by the way.
And
well,
also,
of course,
it
But
is.
You asked us to give our experiences. That's like,
Well, I was just telling my story of how I feel in general towards women, which is obviously, like you guys have heard probably 1,000 times, I grew up with a single mum. So yeah, when you're in that situation, you see the struggles a woman goes through. So I've always had the mindset that I couldn't grow up with a single mum and then inflict pain onto women because I've seen it happen to my mum. So I've seen my mum cry. I've seen my mum get hurt. I've seen a lot of different situations. God rest their soul. So for me, that's where my general thinking has come from, is that, I've been raised with a single mum. So I couldn't grow up and then inflict pain towards women.
You sound like Jesus, man. Is he your brother or something? Like, wow, you're out here dying for sins. Like,
well, I'm just giving my perspective.
So you've never, because I think like, what we're trying to say is that no one's perfect, and we've all had to go through learning. Like, do you know what I mean? To be the people, the amazing people that we are today, and allegedly, well, I'm talking about myself. I'm sure you're awesome, but I'm saying like, obviously, you saw your mum, and what I find sometimes is that it's very much like when it comes to my family and my sisters and my family, like, you know, I ride and die. I'm very respectful, but when it comes to the gal them or other people that are not related or that are not close friends, people have made mistakes. Like, we're all human. We've made mistakes in that.
Well, on top of that, a bit more background is that I did grow up with a single mum, but from the age of 15 is when my sister came along. Okay. So it was me, my mum, and my sister. So I was living with two women. So my sister now, 21, I'm always thinking of her safety, how guys are perceiving her. She's a very good looking woman. Do you know what I mean? So I'm already on high alert as a brother, an older brother that grew up with a single mum. So my perspective is always, okay, it could happen to my sister. So that then opens it up to, if something happens to a woman, I then think that could have been my sister.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I always have that relation where I can always put someone live that's now active in my life into that position. And if it's more often than not something horrible, I wouldn't want that to happen to my sister. So that's my perspective.
Thank you for sharing.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Sorry for ripping your head off.
Yeah.
That's all right. You know. Still attached.
Setting the pace. We're setting the pace. Set the pace from now.
Set the bar high.
Joey.
You have to remind me what the question was again. Where did I learn my teachings from, right?
Yeah, like what?
Yeah.
What's your perspective on
earliest
young
teachings?
age?
Yeah, about women and that relationship.
So I think similar to you, Jay, I grew up single mum, but mainly I grew up with my mum, my aunt, and my grandma. So what I'd say is I naturally grew up to respect them and other women. However, there was a big dissociation between women and girls my age. And I think a big thing is a lot of what I was learning in terms of how to treat my female counterparts or my peers is a lot of learned behavior that I was learning from mandem.
Yeah.
And like older mandem especially as well. And I think because where normally I was still quite like a little bit of a quiet child and whatnot, especially seeing how certain men would move to girls and seeing, well, at that time, I'm seeing it as, wow, my man got the number. All right, that's how man has to move now.
Yeah.
It's out of my wheelhouse because naturally, like, I suppose I talk to like my mum and dad in a different way, but I'm seeing these men talk like this or act like this and they're getting a certain way.
Like what exactly? Please elaborate for people that don't know.
So you know certain things that at the time you see it as, oh yeah, being like strategic, but looking as an older person, I was like, nah, that's cornering someone. It's like almost chasing someone into a maze. So like one example is, you know, you kind of move to a girl on road and then it's the like, what's your number? and it's calling a number straight there. What, you gave me a fake number? Like what's
absolutely
going
hate
on?
that.
Like seeing things like that, I didn't see it as, oh, she's feeling a type, like she naturally didn't give the number because it's not that, but she doesn't know how to say no. I saw that as, wow,
She don't like
he,
me.
not even that, he objection handled that quite well.
Yeah.
I might need to try that next time.
Yeah.
And then now I'm doing it,
Mm.
you know? And a lot of my learned behavior, it definitely came from naturally what everyone else was doing. So everyone was pretty much copying everyone's behavior when it came to how they treated women or kind of girls back then. So for me, there was definitely a big difference between how I'll treat kind of older women in comparison to girls my age or around my age.
But what did you think women were? Thank you for sharing. Like, what did you? Because you know, when we were younger, it was like, oh, I'm gonna get married at 25. You know, he's gonna come on the horse and take me out the hood.
I'm still waiting for that.
Babe, like I am. He's a wrinkle waiting for this. Anyway,
Exactly.
yeah. But I just wondered, you know, what were your views on women? Like, I mean, obviously, please correct me if I'm wrong, but with the younger you, Joey, sounded like you saw women as a bit of a commodity, like, man, I'm trying to get numbers. Do you know what I mean? Are these reciprocal beings that needed to, you know what I mean, receive whatever you're giving before you saw them as whole people, obviously, as you grew up? Would you say that's true? Or what do you think of women? Like, they're there to bang, they're annoying, they're emotional. Like, when you were 15, the 15-year-old Joey, and same for you, Jay, the 15-year-old Jay, like, what were your specific thoughts about women?
Me, pretty much what you said. Like, more time, I'd spend time with the man them, chilling and whatnot. And the only time you'd really spend with the opposite sex was to try and beat.
Yeah. And beat, for those who aren't in the know,
is to try and fornicate with them.
Okay.
Fornicate.
Oh, don't worry, dating. We are going to be coming up to fornication.
Fornicate, copulation, whatever you want to call it.
Population, like, more pull out through.
Copulation. But yeah, like that was pretty much the process back then. But then what I would say as well is there was probably like a small pocket of girls that you'd be like, yeah, they're cool, man, they're blessed. But you'd always say, for a girl.
Yeah.
So even then, you're still kind of boxing them in a way.
Okay.
Absolutely. How about you, Jay?
For me, I've always, I know you're going to get into relationships, but from Joey's kind of young experience with women compared to mine is a bit different, because I've always literally been in long-term relationships. So I think I've been in 4. I'm 36 now, so on average, all of them have been like 4 years.
How long have you been in this one?
So
the love of your life, the one. Sorry.
Yeah, I've been in my relationship now, like a year and a half.
Okay, so she's got another 2.5 if we get to the 4-year mark.
No, I don't think like that personally. I try and see the end goal, you know, in every relationship I've been in.
Yeah.
But yeah, so for me, I wasn't really on this like getting different girls. Because even at a young age, like I said, growing up with my mum, I wanted what my mum didn't have at that time. So I could see the pain it was causing. And I've always said that I want to just, you know, eventually when I do settle down and have kids, like it's going to be one woman, get married.
Yeah.
I don't want multiple baby mums. I know it sounds bad, but that's
it doesn't sound bad. It
doesn't sound bad.
I've always said that.
No, it's amazing.
Yeah.
To have that instant
very
joy.
rare.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I just wanted to say, like, obviously we talked about, like, you know, both coming from single parents, female led. I just wondered more about the men in your life, maybe it's uncles or peripheral, maybe father figures. What did they, when you were younger, teach you about gender and women and
directly or indirectly?
Yeah.
Shall I kick that one off? For me,
I need to think on my answer quite carefully.
Well, I can say again, like I can only speak from my own perspective.
Absolutely.
And I'll say it straight. My dad, to me, is a dickhead. So after seeing in the early years, I don't remember too much what he put my mum through. I was always using him as an example that I didn't want to be like. So it was kind of a reversal where I was like, yeah, he's a prick. Like, I don't want to be nothing like him. And seeing what that, obviously, the pain it caused my mum, etc. So yeah, I use my dad as a template as a man I don't want to be like. he's actually a very successful businessman. But take that apart, he's still a waste man when it comes to his kids. Because I have a brother as well. So we both have a bit of a similar story. So yeah, moving on from that, again, any relationships my mum got into, the men were quite respectful. And I made sure of that, obviously, as a son living in the house, you know, and I was on stuff when I was young. So although I was a kid, like I would have stabbed the man in his sleep if I have to for my mum. So if I felt
quick
that
pillow
way,
jobs.
you know, quick stuffings. But so yeah, the men thankfully were respectful towards my mum, which is something that was an example to me. You know, my dad fled and done his thing, but men were coming in and being with my mum, knowing that, you know, she had 2 kids as well. So that also showed me that, you know, there's chances, like people are accepting her. I knew my mum was great, but people were guys were accepting her for who she was, you know? So for me, I had those kind of juxtapositions where my dad's a waste man to me and guys are stepping in and stepping up and looking after my mum. And yeah, that was, again, the examples that I had to go from.
No. Thank you for sharing.
It's
Honestly,
okay.
like,
You don't need to thank me. I'm here to share. So
yeah.
Yes, the bits.
All right, over to you.
Yeah, so with me, kind of male influences growing up. Yeah, zilch. My pops, I don't know.
Is he Nigerian?
Yeah.
Oh, my people, man.
Oh Lord.
let me talk to the village elders, man. We'll figure it out, man.
Yeah, we'll talk afterwards. Yeah, so pops don't know. And so my kind of, whilst my family's big, a lot of them are scattered in different countries. So there's not many of us here. So it's only me, mum, aunt, grandma, and my uncle. But me and my uncle growing up, like we would talk and stuff, but we wouldn't really have deep combos about certain things. It was very superficial. So things we talk about is like TV, football, things like that, but not kind of any life lessons. So in terms of, I suppose, how to treat women, I didn't really get that from him. And similarly, I didn't really see him like with anyone as a demonstration of this is how you treat a woman. But saying that, to be fair, my mum was in a long-term relationship whilst I was a kid. So I got to see like a demonstration of that, and kind of me and her boyfriend at the time really got on. Like me and him, we still talk now. But again, I think, yeah, in terms of male influence, I didn't really see that kind of in my family. A lot of what I saw was relationships on TV, what they look like. And that can be any ranging from good to bad or whatever it is.
On average, what was it?
Literally like anything. Like
by night things.
Yeah, like that, or it could be, you know, where they're trying to show you a storyline, like of, for example, domestic abuse. But where I'm young, I'm just seeing just a guy just whacking up a woman. I'm like, whoa, what is that? What relationships like? That's what I'm getting from it. So a lot of kind of the demonstrations I saw was either on TV or what was going on in the playground, or like after school when man are kind of driving to the school and you're just seeing a little girl hop into the whip and you're like, but even then I'm not thinking, it got to a point when I was probably like 15, 16 where I'm like, nice, it's sus. Because even in my head I'm thinking, ugh. But at the time when I was probably a little bit younger, I'm thinking, so I need a car. That's what I'm taking from it. All right, I need a car. Cool. I'm disregarding everything else that looks sus. I'm just looking at, these guys are successful. I need a notebook and start doing what they're doing. And that's what it was.
I just wonder, I mean, I guess I'm really fascinated because like my parents have been together since my mum was 14 and like, they're still together now. I think they like each other still. It's all married. or maybe because of COVID, the divorce papers ain't gone through. I don't know, but no, God forbid, like they've been together forever. So I find it really fat. And my dad was a very ever-present father. So I know, isn't it? Like more so, even more so my mum. My dad was very on all 5 of his kids. Like,
Breaking all them Niger stereotypes.
Yeah, I know,
But
innit?
do you know
But-
what's funny?
Yeah.
When I used to hear people like that talk about having pups, I was like, wow, that is
That's
wild.
lit.
Yeah.
What, you went park and kicked
Just-
ball with your dad?
Listen,
That's
wait,
a man. Yeah.
what? Wait, what? Your dad raised you? Swear to God, your dad raised you. Like, even hearing things like that to me is just, and I'm almost 30, to me that's perplexing. Like, what? Dads? Fair dues. Sorry.
No. And I'm exactly the opposite way around, hearing like, you know, especially a Niger man not sticking around or a man of colour not, because that's all I've known. So, but then in saying that, there's goods and bad from that, because obviously my dad was very much, women should be doing this and they shouldn't be doing that. So there's positives and negatives of that as well. But I don't know about you, Very. Growing up.
I mean, I was similar to the boys. I was like raised by my mom. My dad left, had affairs. He's a bit of a gallist still now at his big age. So I definitely had learned behaviour that I just thought that you couldn't rely on men, because they would walk out, they would like leave when something better came along. Like they just weren't reliable. And that kind of was also the same with uncles, with like most of my friends' parents were divorced. So I just thought that that's what happened. And that was kind of like a narrative my life then followed, because I kept picking unavailable men like my dad. But yeah, here we are.
But it's unconscious though, isn't it? We don't know.
Yeah. And you don't realise till you start
Definitely.
like looking into things.
In like parenting and social work, they talk about something called the restorative script and a repetitive script. And the repetitive script is when you're bound to repeat whatever you were shown growing up in your parenting or relationships. Or there's the other version, which is the restorative script, where it's like maybe something like you kind of said, Jay, where you've seen the negativity of what's happened and you want to restore that narrative by doing the absolute opposite of doing so. But I just wondered, like, from a theme that I'm getting, please correct if I'm wrong, is that the relationship between men and women growing up was like women were opting, something you can opt out of, like a relationship with a woman you can opt out of. I don't know.
I'll speak on that, because although I did have the experience of my dad going and my mum being in a relationship with another man, etc., it wasn't like a come and go thing until, for me, when I got more towards secondary school. So I'm talking from like a young age, like 7, 8, 9, you're kind of just growing balls. Do you know what I mean? Then
literally.
going forward. So you can't, from that age, for me, I was already seeing hurt and pain from my mum. So already I was trying to, like you say, restore that or be the opposite of that. But in terms of the value that women had, I kind of think it worked in reverse for me, because as I got older towards secondary school and into secondary school, that's when I started to see more mistreatment. So obviously, like Joey was referring to earlier, how guys were being successful with women, and you do kind of look at that as a template. So for me, I think I grew up as a good one, and then started seeing bad habits and bad behaviors that not necessarily I picked up myself, but I was thinking that was the way to be successful. So I think as I went through my teenage years, I started to think that women probably had less value.
Yeah.
So I started off good, and then I started picking up things that I thought were good things that were actually not, because they seem so socially acceptable.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. It is just so socially acceptable. And we, like, as women, we almost subconsciously, well, not even subconsciously, but like I'm very aware of the fact that I feel like a second-class citizen a lot of the time, because we're not like prioritized. We're not, respected a lot of the time. I know most women will feel that we're like objectified a lot of the time, and like there's this fine balance between wanting to be found attractive but also being respected. And it's just really hard to know how to navigate that as a woman, because it's almost like you want somebody to be like, oh yeah, she's hot, but then when they do that, sometimes it's like, oh, like like I feel like dirty now. Like it's really hard to work through. So yeah.
And it's not your fault. It's not any of our faults. We live in a patriarchal society that does impact men as well as it does impact women. And it's all about the male gaze. And I think we have to like reconcile that within ourselves. Like, of course, we want a man to say like, you know what, Liz, like, you're all right, innit? Like,
Yeah.
Of course, man, no matter how many books I read and whatever, of course, you're a woman. But I think it's about us not giving away something of ourselves to get that attention.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if, for instance, I'm only wearing a short skirt because I want that attention. That's me giving away something of myself to get that male approval.
Yeah.
If I'm out here with my long ass down to my ankles and I'm still getting that, then I don't think anything wrong with wanting male attention. Is just what we're gonna give away of ourselves to get that.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Cool.
I think like moving on from that, like, and when you touched on clothes, like I've had experiences where because of how I dress or whatever, when a situation has happened, like for example, I was groped at work, and when that happened,
sorry to hear that, by the way.
it was horrible, but I didn't want to report it to anyone because I felt like people would be like, well, Vari always wears like a skirt to work every day. Like she's always in a dress. Like she wears a lot of makeup. She's always hanging around with like all the guys. Like, you know, of course someone's going to touch her up now and then. And it like literally took me about 4 days to report it because I didn't want everybody then to be talking about it and then my character to be like assassinated. And actually, when I did report it, like one of our senior managers like took me to one side and said that something similar had happened to her in the workplace. And she was like, you know, I totally get it because I was the same as you. Because I like wear heels to work, wear a dress, like I thought that everyone was going to be like, well, you know, blah, blah, blah. She's a bit of a hoe. Like, you know, she wants attention. And it was so uncomfortable. And the guy did end up getting sacked. He was a contractor, so he just went like that day. But these things happen in workplaces all the time. And 2 people saw it happen and nobody stopped him. Nobody like said anything. Nobody like, they literally just watched him do it and then carried on with their work. Like it was on the office floor. And it's so mad. And like so many situations have happened to me as a female in the workplace that it's horrible. I once had a time where my boss told me to sleep with a client, like to win the contract. He was like, oh yeah, so this is the thing, like he really likes us, but you're a deal breaker. And I was like, sorry, what? And everyone in the meeting didn't say anything. They just like looked at it. Like
this was in front of them.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
There was other guys. I was the only female in the meeting room, and everybody, because they didn't want to challenge the director, everybody just sat there. And I was like, I'm not doing that. And they were like, we'll just take him out for dinner and have a couple of drinks and, you know, blah, 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 named like a hotel. I was like, I'm not going there because I'm not even going for dinner with him because I know that he's going to have the expectation that I'm going to have sex with him. And I'm not going to do that. And then when I left the office, all the other guys were like, oh, Vari, that was so out of order. But nobody challenged it. And I guess, like, obviously, I know you're a PT. I know you work, like, in an office. What we kind of wanted to touch on is, you know, have you seen situations like that? Like, what would you do in those kind of situations? And how do you think, as men, you can support like women, not in like the most obvious way? Like, do you think you would challenge it if you saw something like that? Yeah,
100%.
Why do you think men don't?
Again, I can't speak for all men, but I think it takes a certain mentality or a certain type of man to challenge that behavior. What I'll also add to that is different environments. So for example, before I was a PT, like back in the day, I worked in sales. So like in an office kind of environment, and in that environment, literally people were sleeping with each other.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying? And it was the gossip in the workplace, and it was socially acceptable. Like, the people would walk past each other in the corridor. Everyone else would know that they'd slept together,
Yeah.
but it wasn't a thing. Do you get what I mean? So certain workplaces, certain cultures of workplaces, that shit can fly. Do you get what I'm saying? If I was in that situation and I saw a woman in front of my eyes get groped, in terms of challenging it, actually, let me come again. I don't know if I would challenge it there and then on the spot, but I would have words with that guy. Like, maybe not there and then in front of everyone and hot him up like that, but I'd say, yo, bro, let me chat to you in the staff room real quick. Like, what was that? I'd question his behavior still, because again, that's in a place that I work in. And again, I think of my sister at work, and if a guy done that to her, I'd be straight at her workplace. So, yeah.
Wow.
It's so mad though, because these instances happen so often and it is never challenged. Like, so I can appreciate, obviously, both of you would be like, yeah, like, we challenge it. But actually, in reality, I've never been in a situation where I've been objectified and anybody's done anything. Not once.
Can I ask you a question in relation to that? In regards to your peers at work, I don't know how well you got on with them, but do you think in and amongst those guys, there was a guy that was able to challenge that guy?
Definitely.
But again, going on further from that, are they friends, for example?
Why do they have to be friends?
No, I'm just trying to, because from a guy's perspective, it's easy to see your brethren do something and let it slide. Do you get what I'm saying? Especially in a work environment where it could be one's a team manager, one's a sales rep, but they're still tight brethren. So if the sales manager does something questionable, his sales rep might not want to even report it, because that's his manager at the end of the day. So he knows possibly even mentioning that or going above to HR, for example, his job's on the line.
Yeah.
So he might have wanted to, and that's why I'm asking you in regards to the characters that you actually work with, because I know what I would do in that situation. But again, I don't know. And I know guys, for example, that I've worked with that would just turn a blind eye to it.
Yeah.
So,
but the bro culture, you know, you talk about, oh, like, if that's a friend, like, what are they? It shouldn't matter. Like, morals are morals, decency is decency. And do you know what I'm saying? And it's less about if that's my friend. Should be more about, is that somebody I want to continue to be friends with? And you know what, Barry just really shared. There is a charity called Rights for Women, and they have like a sexual harassment line, and they have like a harassment line, and 44% of the people that called up that harassment line in 2020 was because of sexual harassment within the workplace. And from their research, they found that 2% of people that called up had actually been raped by a colleague, and about 3% of the women that called up had also been stalked by colleagues in the workplace. So it's a big issue. And I think, you know, when you said that you would challenge it by calling that person to the side, like in advocacy, we use it a lot more in racism. We have something called calling in and calling out. And sometimes people feel like when you see something of negativity that's going on, you call in, as in like you take a person to the side and say, look, this ain't right. And then there's calling out, where you call them out in public spheres. And personally, I think there's too much calling in because of the bro culture and so forth, and less calling out. And I think we need more calling out.
Yeah, no, definitely.
You need to be shamed in public.
Because if people know that it's going to be like challenged and everyone's going to like see it there and then, like, then they're going to be less likely to do it. Like, as a woman, I should be able to feel safe to go to work and not have somebody like putting his hand on my ass, like, or telling me to sleep with someone, or putting his arms around my waist when I'm like washing a dish in the sink, like that. Why does a man think that is okay? Why does a man think that he has a right to claim or touch my body without even speaking to me or really acknowledging me? And I just think if we were much more, even as women, if we called it out more often, maybe men would do it less. Like,
And men, it's not only just as women, the onus should be on the woman as the victim to be calling it out. It should be anyone in that vicinity, including males. And the reason why is because of the patriarchal society. Women are commodified. We are told we are there for entertainment for the man, for the male gaze. So when that happens, whether people want to admit it or not, subconsciously, this is the order of law. Like,
Yeah.
of course, a woman's ass can be grabbed in any setting because we're men and we hold more power.
yeah.
I think, sorry, just to jump in
No,
and
please
just to
do.
kind of touch on some of what everyone has said. I think the one thing we need to realize is a lot of the time, the men that are in those spaces or witness these things, they don't even think anything's wrong
No.
with the actual act that's happened. So I know in your specific instance, they came to you afterwards and they said that was out of order.
Yeah.
It just shows it could be a mixture of things.
But
I
sorry
don't-
to interrupt you, and I love to interrupt people. I'm sorry, but you said that there's some men who believe that what would have happened is wrong, isn't wrong. How can you not, from a human decency, like we're out here getting paid, like I'm not getting paid using my banana. Why is it okay to expect a woman to seal the deal with her body? Well, shouldn't that, at this stage of where we are in society, shouldn't everyone know that is wrong? Like, are you saying there's men out there that still believe it's okay to ask a woman to use her body to seal a deal?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because clearly there is. Because
Yeah.
someone asked Barry. And clearly no one responded off the back of that. So to some level, there are men that think, oh, what he said is calm. But
is it they think what is calm? I'm sorry, I'm debating this.
Let me actually just finish this
Your
point.
sentence.
Yeah. Because in this specific instance, they came to you and they said it was out of order. So I think it's not, they didn't see anything, they did see something wrong with it. It could be a multitude of things. And again, I would have done something differently, but I can only guess as to what was going through their heads. Cowardice. I think what some people do as well is, I don't want to overreach myself if that person doesn't want to go further in some regards, because similar to what you were saying in terms of, I'm going against the director. Like, what if I speak out, but then like Babby doesn't take it further? And that's how some people think, because we're individualistic. And I think in that scenario, I think that's probably what it was to some degree. But I don't, because obviously I don't know the men in question. But clearly they just didn't feel as though they could speak up. And that is a big, big problem, because what happens with that is it just enables your director.
Yeah.
And I suppose kind of going back like a little bit to kind of now speaking about myself, is I think of like other instances where I've enabled people that I know. So I think one example I kind of gave to you, like when we were talking a long, long time ago, is, there will be times where when I was younger, I'll be in a club and when you're sipping your drink, I'm just behind like a girl that I don't even know. And then, like a random, like one of the man them or just a random guy will tap her shoulder or tap her bum and run off. And then she's looking at me like, what are you doing? What are you talking about? And I've seen that so many times. And even though I wouldn't really be bum pinching and running away, because I always just used to see it as, but the thing is, I just always used to see it as, that's just juvenile, not even banner, that's just juvenile. Like, why would you, if you guys want to do that and be losers, that's your thing, but that's not for me. But me not even saying anything is still enabling them, because to some degree, because I'm silent, and I'm not even me just saying, like, you man acting like kids might make someone think, actually, yeah, maybe I'm acting like a kid. Just some form of disapproval to show that what you're doing is not on. But because I never really done that, they just thought, oh yeah, banter, woohoo, yeah, running around doing whatever. I'll tell you what, the only what changed when I started checking people, and then later on I realized, actually, I now need to check myself, is when I realized it was sexual assault. So that's when I started going to them, what are you doing? Listen, what are you doing? You're trying to get bagged. And afterwards I was like, wow, I'm trying to preserve sexual assault, like what's going on there, and not actually what's happening to the females. That's wrong.
Yeah.
And I think, but kind of going back, like in terms of the silent bit, is where the enablement comes and the perpetuation comes as well.
And I just want to add some context to that as well, because off the back of what you were saying, where you can be there calling out in public, or you can bring a man to a side, especially amongst black men. Like, if you call out a man in a situation like that in front of other men, it automatically becomes a dick
An
off.
issue,
Like, it's
yeah.
an ego thing. And in that situation, you have to be prepared to potentially fight a man right there and then. So for me, that's why I've never been that call out a man right there and then, because a lot of the guys that I hang around with that potentially do that kind of thing, it's gonna be a fight, and you know it's gonna be a fight. So me personally, I was always down to fight, but not with my boys. I'd rather not. It was more a us against the world kind of mentality. But when you see that, it's like you either, like you said, call it out there and then. But with doing that, you have to be prepared to fight a man, because regardless if you think you're right or wrong, he doesn't see the wrong in what he's done. So you're basically coming to him with conflict. And not only that, because you're the only man that's saying something and everyone else around has enabled it, it seems like you're coming directly for him. So why is it only you calling me out, but all these other 5 men don't have nothing to say? Well, because I'm the man that thinks it's wrong, innit?
And you know what they say? Like, yo, Jay, why you acting mad for?
Why are you moving mad?
Yeah, what's wrong with you, bro?
Why? No, mad? Bro, you're moving mad.
It's like, yeah, but they don't see it that way.
What do you mean I'm moving
But
mad?
I feel like
and then before you know it, you're in
Yeah.
a conflict with your brethren, and then your other brethren are surrounding, and then it's a mad situation, all because you thought he done a wrong end. Do you know what I mean? So
You
it's
thought or you know.
well, you
In
know,
that case.
you do know.
So my question is, are your values worth fighting for?
Mine are always worth fighting for, but in certain situations.
But not when it comes to calling out a man when he's doing something to a woman. Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm not saying that at all. But I'm saying we can either brawl here right now for what you don't see the wrong that you've done, and 2, no one else is saying anything about it. So that guy already feels like it's my vendetta against him. And the fact that no one else is saying nothing, it's now personal. So like I said, regardless if I think I'm right in the situation, I know now I've got to go to war for this here. And I'll be honest with you, sometimes when all the man them are out, for example, you don't want to fight a man like when you've been in the club half an hour, because you know that's ejection. Then the rest of the man are looking at you like, oh, what's going on? Like, why are you fighting? And then before you know it, you've got a situation with other men for just the way that you fought. So
are you saying it's context specific? Because Various case was in the workplace, and I understand what you mean. Like, you don't want to be like the only one out here on the ledge, but also sometimes people are sheep. And the same way people kept quiet because no one said something, sometimes it takes one person to be like, that ain't right, for other voices to rally behind that lone voice. So it can work both ways. But I don't know, I can't remember who said it, but what they say, like, for evil to exist in this world, you just need a few good men to do nothing. And where does there come a point where you have to stand up to that person? And I understand the whole calling out, because obviously you're doing it, calling in, because you're doing it from a conflict resolution point of view. You don't want it to be a dick off. But how does that woman who has been humiliated in public in front of these individuals, what resolution is there for her in that moment? And that resolution can be, you know what, I stand with her. I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are, Very, but that's my thing. Sometimes we need that affirmation that how we're feeling, the violation we're feeling in a public setting is not okay, and we need to head up by other voices.
I agree.
And that's how you become an ally. You have to stand on your sword. I mean, we are nothing but our values. So we're either 24 hours our values, or we're part-time. So are we genuine people then? I'm not saying you're not, but it's more of a conversation.
And with that as well, obviously comes the growth of a man.
Yes.
Because I can look back on questionable things I may have done or said towards women. So I'm not even trying to paint this rosy picture. Like, I can look back now as a 36-year-old man and look at myself at maybe 22, 23 and say, fuck, I did that, or I said that, or I moved that kind of way. So it does take growth in a man to see, or even look at yourself and see how you used to carry yourself. And even now, in the day that we live in, there's so many titles and brandings, like, you don't want to be catching none of them. So really, you should be taking extra care to make sure you're not breaking any actual laws. But yeah, saying it is one thing and doing it is another. So
I want to ask you a quick question, something you touched on about, as a black man. I just wonder, from identity of who you are as a person, are you a man first or are you black first? And that's for both of you.
Both.
One of them has to. What is your? I'll tell you why, because I
to
remember
me, I'm a man first.
a man first. Okay, and I asked that because there was a for those who'd watched that Michaela Cole, I May Destroy You. There was like a black guy called Kwame in there, and he was gay, but he was like trying to date a woman and so forth. And there's a bit when she'd said a couple of N words, and he weren't bothered. But the minute she said the F word pertaining a derogatory word towards people who are gay, he got more offended. And that was a perception of him saying, actually, he's gay. He's leading characteristics of that. He's gay first. Does that make sense? And he's a man, and he's a black person second. So that's why he wasn't offended with the N word, but he was very offended with the F word. And I think for me personally, when I locate myself, I'm black first and I'm a woman second. Do you know what I'm saying? Because of just how I've experienced the world. And I think when you have that deep introspection about your identity and which one comes more first for you, it kind of will play up in how maybe you interact with other people. Does that make sense? Like I'm the first, I'm quick to shut down racism. That's the first thing that I will do. But sexism, I'm a Nigerian woman. I was baptized in sexism. Do you know what I mean? I'm not saying it isn't, I'm not still saying it's not negative and it doesn't bother me. I mean, I've got 4 brothers. I'm the only girl. So and my mum and dad's obviously still together. So I come from very man-dem night, like even to this day, love all 4 of my brothers. But today they'll be like, oh, here's Liz going a feminist rant. I'm like, I'm not. I'm just saying, wash your plate. I'm not washing it for you. Like, do you know what I mean? So I know I'm very male-dominated household, but I feel like that's a second identity to me, as opposed to race. So I just wondered that for you guys and how that maybe motivates how you call out sexism in the workplace or in any other area.
I mean, do you want to go with that one?
Yeah, I mean, for me, if I had to pick between the two, I'm probably black first. And I think it's probably helped me in a way. Because I suppose when I think of things, even kind of hearing both of your experiences, I don't get it because statistically, I won't have some of the challenges that you guys have. But whenever both of you guys talk, similar to when we was going through me and white supremacy, and when I was reading that, it was very much focused towards white people. So when I was reading it, I couldn't get it at all. So I just had to flip on its head a little bit and translate it into a language that I could properly understand, i.e. the racism that I feel. And even kind of hearing some of the things that both of you guys have said, like it's coming in here, I'm changing it a little bit and to try and understand it. And I think in terms of, I think that as well, this is why I think a lot of people, I know one thing you said is like, oh, what do you think that there are men that are still out there that think this is okay? Like, yeah. And it's because they just don't truly understand or can compute some of the things that happen to women and really see like the negative impact. And I think it's because for some people, they have a really, really high threshold of what needs to constitute something like sexual assault, or like unless someone says, I got dragged into an alleyway, pinned down, and XYZ happened to me. And on top of that, I wasn't wearing a miniskirt or I wasn't looking flirtatious or anything. People don't really understand.
Is it don't understand or don't empathize?
Probably a bit of both. Probably empathy a lot more, because I think I've heard a lot of rebuttals for a lot of things saying, oh, but she was leading him on, or but she was wearing this. And it's an empathy thing, because I don't understand why, for example, because even when you was talking about, I'd probably call my boy in, and I was thinking the same thing. And I'd think to myself, like, what would I have to tell my boy to make him understand? I'd probably have to relate it to his mum or his aunt or his sister. Why does it take that? So why does it take that for you to kind of understand not to treat women that way? Which is crazy.
No, absolutely. Like my brother, one of my brothers, he has 2 sons, and he's just like, you know what, God couldn't give me daughters because I'll be scared. I'll be anxious. I would actually have anxiety attack. But it's again, like you said, they have to relate it to, I have this, so I understand that. So if you don't have
Yeah.
that, do you not understand? Do you not have empathy for the human condition? And that is what frustrates me. Like, why people have to have something invested in a particular cause, for instance, for them to understand or really empathize. I don't know. What you think, Berry?
I've like said this to like a guy before, like, I could be your sister, I could be your daughter, whatever. And the guy's just straight up been like, my sister or daughter wouldn't behave like that. I'm like, okay. So what am I doing like to deserve that? Like, to put it into context, this was like a guy who I met on a dating app who just wanted me to like go straight to his house, like Netflix and chill. We'd literally been talking for about a day.
Wow,
and he's like,
he was on a takeaway thing, baby.
Yeah.
Wait,
he was
take
like,
it
"Oh, come to
through.
my house," and I was like,
Uber
"No."
Eats.
And he was like, "Why? Why are you being boring?" Blah blah. And I was like, "I'm not being boring." I was like, "What would you like say to your sister in this situation or your daughter?" And he was like, "Oh, my sister or my daughter wouldn't be on Tinder, like clearly looking to fuck." I'm like, "I'm not looking to fuck actually, but
He's moving
I'll
wild.
see you later."
What?
No, absolutely.
And
Babe,
that's the
unmatched.
thing,
That
like,
is rabid.
yeah, it's
Oh,
just
that cussed him out.
that's
a
the
little bit.
thing. Sometimes you will even say to a man and try to make them put themselves in that shoes, and it's so ingrained into their head that women are a certain way and are certain women are like toys, for example, that it's almost like my women are saints and any other woman is a whore. And that's just the way that some men see it. And I've seen it so many times, and
Madonna
it's just
whore
really
complex,
sad.
I think it's called. The
Yeah,
Madonna,
yeah.
Oh, what? Sorry.
Madonna whore complex. When like, men see women as either these virginal people, and then there's
They
men.
done Madonna dirty on that.
Wow.
Well, she like a virgin, isn't it? Like, but she was a feminist in her time, and then there's the whole like women that are there to fuck. And sometimes growing up, let's be real, we've heard the narrative, isn't it? The man that wants to skeet on a chick, but then the girl they want to marry is the virginal virgin one.
Yeah.
That's the Madonna whore complex. But I feel like, just going back to your awful scenario that happened on a dating app. My thing is, I think a lot of men, they have this narrative about women, and it comes from, again, the patriarch, or keep on saying it, like women are possessions. Even when it goes, my daughter, my wife will never act this way, is that your perception and power on on the individual, and you're not giving them free agency to be what they are. Maybe your daughter will be out here fucking the biggest man, like, do you know what I mean? Like you
10 man a day.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's a male gaze on what women are. Like, when you think about it, like when we think of, say, Britney Spears or Christina Aguilera,
Britney.
when they first started, it was all like, you know what I mean, like virginal. But then there's always this, I've noticed it a lot with like female singers. There's always this phase, they come out innocent, then they have their sex kitten, like sex doll.
Christina Aguilera, dirty on the floor.
Yeah,
But
great
what's-
album.
what's-
Great
Beyonce
album.
was telling women
Yeah.
to do the most still
Yeah.
these times when she had a husband. But yeah, it is what it is.
But
Definitely.
even with Britney Spears, she didn't even really start off like fully innocent. If you think about it, like she was
Dressed up in a school uniform.
Yeah, school uniform.
Sexualized.
But
Highly
who put that on her?
hypersexualized.
She was a 16-year-old girl. It was the male.
Oh, I'm not saying it was her.
bodies.
I'm saying
No,
obviously,
but-
yeah.
And an example of that male gaze again, like they put her with what does allegedly all men fantasy, a woman in a school uniform.
And
Do you know
can
what
we
I'm
just
saying?
say, like, for the record, that is wild, by the
No,
way,
I don't
man.
get it.
Stop that,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah, it is,
Go
but it's
Japan,
that.
they're on that hard.
But it's not about.
Yeah.
I think it's about power, and I think a lot of patriarchal is about the domination of a woman, and how more can you dominate a woman than a girl in a school uniform who is innocent, doesn't know, and they dominate, and that's what it really is. That's what
To
rape's about.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I was gonna touch on. To me, that's always been a creepy fetish. Like, it's mad. Like, especially as a grown man, yeah, because I've seen this like at stag do's or whatever, where they might get a stripper in a school uniform even, or fucking it's mad. And to think that guys 40 plus 30 whatever grown men see that as something sexual still to this day is worrying. It's very
But
worrying.
do you know what's the most worrying thing? Not even that they're attracted to that. That's just widely accepted.
Yeah, that's exactly what I
Like,
was just going to say.
that's what I was trying to say.
Like,
That it's
because even kind of growing up, like I didn't really think much of Britney Spears, but to be fair, I was in school them times anyways.
yeah.
But it wasn't until I was older, I was like, wait, hang on.
Mm.
Nah, this is mad. This
Yeah.
is suspect. Suspect. And it's like, what? No one's saying nothing about this.
Yeah.
What? People wheel this out as a actual video and marketed this. Wow. Like, that's the big problem.
And I think, I can't remember if it's China or Japan, but they have a massive schoolgirl fetish. That's
Yeah,
their thing.
you just said that,
I think
yeah.
it's Japan, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just widely accepted. And
It's the norm. Yeah.
and
it's wrong.
I just think, but I think one way we can, like you said, Joey, about it's just widely accepted, no one's calling it out. I'm saying calling it out is what we need. We need more males to talk to their gender and say this is not acceptable. And because that's not happening, because I think when women do it, it's like, oh, the feminists going on, here we go, women. But when a man says it and stands in that truth, like, this is unacceptable, I think more men will actually take heed of that.
I stand by that comment. Like, if you're into all of this schoolgirl stuff and you're a big man, it's wild. Drop it out, please.
Well, you know, I feel like everyone's into what they're into, innit, man? Just make sure it's consensual. That's just my view. Like, my issue is when you're actually not getting your 30-year-old girlfriend to do it, or you're looking for a 16-year-old girl to do it.
And
and
what
that's an
age
issue.
do you wear school uniform up to? So that's where I'm coming from, is a man's mindset, like, what, maximum 17, I think?
Max.
I think it's even 16.
16,
Yeah,
really.
Because
because normally
17, you're going sixth form.
Yeah, sixth form.
So yeah, that's
you
all
can't.
mufti day in that dress down. So yeah, the fact
Mufti
that
day.
the oldest you can wear a uniform is 16. So that's where I was coming from before, how guys can still order, I want a schoolgirl. But like, you're thinking about beating a kid. You're a wrong one for that.
It is, but then they're protected by the law, isn't it? Because if you are 16, you are.
I mean, obviously, the
consensual.
woman doing such is legal age.
Yeah,
but then still to have those thoughts.
Exactly. The mindset of the man that is making that booking, saying, I need specifically a woman dressed in. Yeah, okay, she's legal age, but your real chain of thought is coming from a young girl.
Yeah.
And that's what never sits right with me. It just never will.
I would say, like, there's a law, the Sexual Offences Act 2004. It actually says that.
The facts.
I was just going to say, Liz loves
you
the facts.
don't disappoint.
No, I just know this from my own working, like, using this law. Like, it's mad, but I think it's really interesting. Sexual Offences Act 2004 or 2003, I can't remember which one it is. And it basically says that if you're it's actually illegal for someone in a position of power to have sex with someone who's under 18. So, for instance, if you're working in a karate, like, you're the sensei, is that what they call them in karate, and then you're dealing with 17-year-olds, and you see a 17-year-old, actually, even though technically 16, it's legal, it's legal, because you're in a position of power.
And you could have coerced them.
Yeah, coerced them. You've used power. So that law actually recognises power as a powerful way of coercing people, in young people, particularly women.
Well, we had that England women's football coach that obviously got sacked for saying things to a female that he thought was acceptable, and he's a manager of the England national team. So again, it's what some guys feel or deem as acceptable and what others don't. It's a very fine line.
Absolutely, but I feel like we have to also recognise that it isn't just lone individuals doing this. It's because of the macho and the bro culture that gives them the power to go on mad and ignorant and not learn. And there's something about how do we, and actually it's not about us no more, because women, we've been talking about this for centuries. How do you guys as men break down that macho I know there's a lot of, codes within codes.
A group of guys are together, it's so, like, even like you being like, a relationship guy, whatever, when you're with all your boys, I can guarantee how that would, like, make a woman feel, because guys, when they're all together, it is kind of like that lads culture and, like, looking at girls and just, it's just so socially acceptable for, and when a group of guys get together, that is just what they're like and what they talk about. Like, women are objectified, like, in that group of men.